Workers, Part 32. There was no doubt about it. The human was standing in the road, waving its torch. There was a car beside him, with a blue flashing light on top. The others had seen it too. "Prices slashed," moaned Gerda. "He's got here in front of us." "More speed," said Angelo grimly. "What are you going to do?" said Masculine. "We'll see how his torch can stand up to a lorry," muttered Angelo. "You can't do that. You can't drive lorries into people," said Masculine. "Its price is slashed," said Angelo. "It's not people." "He's right," said Grimmer. "You said we mustn't stop now." Masculine grabbed the steering strings and gave one a yank. The lorry skewed around just as Price's Slash dropped his torch and, with respectable speed, jumped into the hedge. There was a bang as the rear of the lorry hit the car, and then Angelo had the threads again and was gliding them back into something like a straight line. "You didn't have to do that," he said sullenly. "It's all right to run into Prices Slashed, isn't it, Gerda?" "Well, said Gerda. He gave Masculine an embarrassed look. "I'm not sure it was Prices Slashed, in fact. He had darker clothes, for one thing. And the car with the light on it." "Yes, but he had the peaked hat and the terrible torch," said Angelo. The lorry bumped off a bank, taking away a large chunk of soil, and lurched back into the road. "Anyway," said Angelo in a satisfied voice, "that's all behind now. We left Arnold Brothers, established 1905, behind in the store. We don't need that stuff. Not outside." Noisy though it was in the cab, the words created their own sort of silence. "Well, it's true," said Angelo defensively, "and Dorcas thinks the same thing, and a lot of younger gnomes." "We shall see," said Gerda. "However, I suspect that if Arnold Brothers established 1905 was ever anywhere, then he's everywhere." "What do you mean by that?" "I'm not sure myself," said Gerda. "I need to think about it." Angelo sniffed. "Well, think about it then. But I don't believe it. It doesn't matter any more. May bargains galore turn against me if I'm wrong," he added. Masculine saw a blue light out of the corner of his eye. There were mirrors over the wheels of the lorry, and although one of them was smashed and the other one was bent, they still worked after a fashion. The light was behind the lorry. "He's coming after us, whoever it is," he said mildly. "And there's that dee-da noise," says Gerda. "I think," Masculine went on, "that it might be a good idea to get off this road." Angelo glanced from side to side. "Too many hedges," he said. "No, I meant onto another road. Can you do that?" 10-4, no problem. Hey, he's trying to overtake. What nerve! Ha! The lorry swerved violently. "I wish we could open the windows," Anglo added. "One of the drivers I watched, if anyone behind him honked, he'd wave his hand out of the window and shout things. I think that's what you're supposed to do." He waved his arm up and shouted, "Yeah!" "Don't you worry about that. Just find another road, a small road," said Masculine soothingly. "I'll be back in a minute." He lowered himself down the swaying ladder to Dorcas and his people. There wasn't too much going on at the moment, just little tugs on the big wheel from the steering groups and a steady pressure on the go faster pedal. Many of the gnomes were sitting down and trying to relax. There was a ragged cheer when Masculine joined them. Dorcas was sitting by himself, scribbling things on a piece of paper. "Oh, it's you," he said. "Everything working now? Have we run out of things to bump into?" "We're being followed by someone who wants to make us stop," said Masculine. "Another lorry?" "A car, I think, with humans in it." Dorcas scratched his chin. "What do you want me to do about it?" "You used things to cut the lorry wires when you didn't want it to go," said Masculine. "Pliers," said Dorcas. "What about them?" "Have you still got them?" "Oh, yes, but you need 2 gnomes to use them." "Then I shall need another gnome." Masculine told Dorcas what he had in mind. The old gnome looked at him with something like admiration, and then shook his head. "It will never work," he said. "We won't have the time. Nice idea, though." "But we're so much faster than humans. We could do it and be back at the lorry before they know." Dorcas grinned nastily. "You going to come?" "Yes, I'm not sure gnomes who've never been outside the store will be able to cope." Dorcas yawned and stood. "Well, I'd like to try some of this fresh air stuff, he said. I'm told it's very good for you. If there had been watchers peering over the hedge into that mist-wreathed country lane, they would have seen a lorry come thundering along at quite an unsafe speed. They might have thought, that's an unusual vehicle. It seems to have lost quite a few things it should have, like one headlight, a bumper, and most of the paint down one side, and picked up a number of things it shouldn't have, like some bits of bush, more dense than a sheet of corrugated iron. They might have wondered why it had a "Road Works Ahead" sign hanging from one door handle. And they would have certainly wondered why it rolled to a stop. The police car behind it stopped rather more impressively, in a shower of gravel. 2 men almost fell out of it and ran to the lorry, wrenching open the doors. If the watchers had been able to understand human, they'd have heard someone say, "All right, chummy, that's it for tonight." And then say, "Where's he gone? There's just a load of string in here." And then someone else would say, "I bet he's nipped out and has legged it over the fields." And while this was going on, and while the policemen poked vaguely into the hedge and shone their torches into the mist, the watchers might have noticed a couple of very small shadows run from under the rear of the lorry and disappear under the car. They moved very fast, like mice. Like mice, their voices were high-pitched, fast and squeaky. They were carrying a pair of pliers. A few seconds later they scurried back again, and, almost as soon as they disappeared under the lorry, it started up. The men shouted and ran back to their car, but instead of roaring into life, it went whir, whir, whir in the misty night. After a while, one of them got out and lifted the bonnet. As the lorry vanished into the mist, its single rear light of fading glow, he knelt down, reached under the car, and held up a handful of neatly cut wires. This is what the watchers would have seen. In fact, the only watchers were a couple of cows, and they didn't understand any of it. Perhaps it nearly ends there. A couple of days later, the lorry was found in a ditch some way outside of the town. What was stranger was this. The battery and every wire, light bulb and switch had been taken out of it. So had the radio. The cab was full of bits of string.